I am 89 years old, and I have lived alone for 15 years. After my husband Arthur passed, my family and friends suddenly became experts on my well-being. They looked at my quiet house and saw a tragedy that needed fixing. They showered me with unsolicited advice, all driven by the fear that my silence was a sign of defeat. Well, it's been 15 years. I haven't moved, I haven't changed my ways, and I am perfectly, completely, wonderfully fine. The world thinks being alone is a hole you fall into. I've found it's a summit you climb to. I'm not lonely, I've never been. But I know there are others out there who prefer the quiet but feel guilty because society keeps shouting that we should want more noise. So I'm sharing what I've learned, 8 shifts in mindset and lifestyle that turned my solitude into a sanctuary. Maybe they'll give you the permission you've been looking for, the permission to be still. When you live with someone else, your day has a natural architecture. You eat when they're hungry, you wake up when they move. But the moment you are alone, those walls can start to crumble. If you aren't careful, the hours just blur into one long gray shadow. You stop knowing if it's Tuesday or Thursday, and eventually you stop caring. That brings me to my second shift in mindset. You must be the architect of your own time. Every morning at 7:30, Jasper makes sure I'm awake with a sharp nudge of his cold nose. I don't roll over. I get up. I make my tea. The same Earl Grey in the same blue china cup. I sit in my chair by the window and turn on the radio. But there's a deeper layer to this routine. It's about dignity. I see many people my age give up. They stay in their nightgowns all day because no one is watching. I don't. Every morning I brush my hair, I put on my favorite pearl earrings, and I apply a touch of rose lipstick. I don't do this for the deer in the woods or for Arthur. He's not here to see it. I do it because I am my own most important guest. Solitude is not an excuse for sloppiness. When you dress up for yourself, you're telling your soul that today still matters, and more importantly, that you still matter. They say when you live alone, you have no reason to get out of bed. That's only true if you have nothing that depends on you. For me, that something is a 14-pound orange tabby named Jasper. He doesn't care if my hips ache or if the snow is 6 feet deep. He expects breakfast at 7:15 sharp. If I'm a minute late, he lets me know with a cold paw to the face. Having something alive that counts on you showing up, it's a tether to the world. It stops you from getting stuck inside your own head. Whether it's a pet, a garden, or even a single fern on your windowsill, find something that needs you. It turns a house into a habitat. But here is the other side of that coin, and this is where most people get it wrong. Being needed is not the same as being used. Last month, my daughter Sarah called. She wanted me to spend the winter in the city helping with the great-grandkids. "It'll keep you busy, Mom," she said. But I told her, "Sarah, I love those children, but I've already raised my family. I've done my time in the trenches." In America, we have this idea that grandparents are just unpaid babysitters waiting for a call. But at 89, my time is my most precious currency. Setting a boundary with your family isn't selfish. It's an act of survival. I chose the quiet of Vermont over the chaos of a nursery because I finally earned a right to choose myself. Love your family, yes, but don't let their needs drown out your peace. When you've lived for nearly a century, you accumulate a lot of stuff. Drawers full of menus, closets full of clothes you haven't worn since the Reagan administration. Most people look at these things as treasures. I look at them as anchors. There is a Swedish term called dödstädning, death cleaning. It sounds morbid, but it's actually the kindest thing you can do for your children. Every afternoon I spend 30 minutes deciding what stays and what goes. I'm giving away my fine china to the neighbors and donating Arthur's old suits to the charity shop. I'm not giving up on life. I'm lightening the load. I want my spirit to be as light as air when it's time to leave, and I don't want my children to spend weeks sorting through my junk and weeping over things they don't even want. Loneliness isn't about being by yourself. It's about being surrounded by people who don't matter. Be picky, be ruthless. Only let people into your sanctuary who bring a light with them. I've applied this same cleaning to my social life. In my 40s, I thought I needed 100 acquaintances to be important. Now, I have three people who actually know the sound of my silence. Margaret from the book club, George the woodcutter, and my sister in Florida. That's it. When you live alone, your social energy is a limited resource. Don't waste it on people who drain you or relationships that are just noise to fill the space. I'd rather have one real conversation every 2 weeks than 10 polite ones every day. When the sun finally dips behind the Vermont pines, the silence in this house, it changes. During the day, it's light, airy, but at night, it becomes thick, heavy, like a wool blanket you never asked for. Most people reach for the remote or a phone to drown it out. I don't. I go to the mirror. That brings me to shift number 5, learning to actually, truly, like yourself. You see, when you live alone, you're stuck with yourself 24 hours a day, and if you don't like the person you're with, that is a very long time to spend with an enemy. I stand there in the soft yellow light and look at the stranger in the glass. 89 years old, skin like tissue paper, eyes that have seen too many winters. For a long time, I didn't like her. I looked at her and saw only the regrets, the words I never said to Arthur, the years I spent playing small so others could feel big. But lately, we've started talking, she and I. I look at those wrinkles now, and I don't see flaws anymore. I see a map of everywhere I've been. I tell her, Evelyn, it's okay. You were doing the best you could with what you knew back then. I've started forgiving that girl who was too afraid to speak up. I've started befriending the woman who felt guilty for just wanting a quiet life. I've learned that peace doesn't come from a house full of people. It comes from being in good company when you're all alone. Now, when I put on my rose lipstick, I'm not hiding my age. I'm smiling at a friend. Because if you can't make peace with the face in the mirror, no amount of noise in the world will ever make you feel less lonely. There's a small wooden box under my bed. It's not filled with gold. It's filled with the scraps of a lifetime. A movie ticket from 1954, a pressed flower turned to dust, and a few letters with fading ink. That brings me to shift number 6. You don't have to carry it all. When we're young, we're like greedy collectors. We cling to every criticism, every heartbreak, every expectation the world throws at us. We turn our souls into a cluttered attic. But at 89, I finally learned how to edit my life. I stand in my living room and look at the empty spaces on the walls where I used to hang meaningless social photos. Now I only keep what radiates warmth. I choose to remember the sun on my shoulders while walking with Arthur, rather than the arguments we had. I choose the smell of toast in my tiny kitchen over the bitter failures of Hollywood. Letting go isn't about forgetting, it's about curating. If you try to hold on to everything, your hands will never be empty enough to catch the peace of the present. Don't let the should-haves or what-ifs take up the space where the is belongs. I close the wooden box. It's light, because I only kept the love. The pain, I left that behind the pines a long time ago. The night is deep now. The fire in the hearth has settled into glowing embers. Outside, the snow begins to fall over the pines, silently blanketing the world. The final shift, the seventh thing I learned, is also the simplest. Peace is the absence of the urge to be anywhere else. All my life I was running from mediocrity, running from loneliness, running toward the bright lights of the city or the arms of strangers. I thought home was a place or a person. But here, in the quiet dark of Vermont, I realize home is this very moment. People often ask me, "Evelyn, aren't you afraid, all alone in this big house with so little time left?" I smile. Afraid of what? The dark? The dark is just where the stars shine brightest. Death? Death is just the way life closes a book that's already full. I'm not lonely anymore. I'm just present. Thank you for sitting here with me by this fire among the old pines. If there's one thing I want you to remember, it's this. Don't wait until you're 89 to start loving your own silence. Turn down the noise, look in the mirror, and smile at the friend standing there. I wish you a peaceful night.